After my family fell into misfortune, I was forced to marry the newly appointed a top scholar in imperial examinations. For 3 years of marriage, I treated him poorly, never consummating the marriage, not even letting him touch a finger. Yet after my death, I saw him clutching my lifeless body, vomiting blood, his hair turning white overnight. Reborn, I suddenly wanted to treat him better. In the 2nd year of my marriage to Gu Xingyuan, he was sent away from the capital to quell the unrest in Yenmen. The bitter cold of the north was relentless, and he endured countless freezing nights under the harsh winds and frost. Someone returning from Yenmen brought news that Lord Gu, despite wearing thin clothing, refused the garments made for him by the locals, leaving his hands frostbitten. When a husband travels far, it is only natural for his wife to prepare warm clothes for him. Yet I indifferently counted the Buddhist beads in the house, thinking only, what does this have to do with me? He was the one who wanted to marry me. On our first night as husband and wife, I told him that my heart had long turned to ashes, that I couldn't love him, and that he shouldn't expect anything from me. He should know in his heart that even if he died at Yenmen, I might not bother to collect his body. The next day, I didn't wake up until noon. Chuanxi rushed in excitedly, exclaiming, "A letter from Lord Gu has arrived." I took it and, without even glancing at it, casually tossed it into the fireplace. Chuanxi gasped in shock. "Oh no, madam, why did you burn it? You don't need to look. I know what's written in that letter. It's nothing more than 4 words, all is well. Don't worry." Gu Xingyuan had been stationed away from home for 2 years, sending letters to his family punctually every month. The content of the letters never changed, just those same 4 words. All is well, don't worry. I wonder why he wrote this. No one in this household misses him. Chuanxi watched helplessly as the letter turned to ashes, feeling it was such a waste, yet she dared not scold me further. After a tense silence, she changed the subject to cheer me up. "Madam, I've heard that Lord Gu has governed Yenmen exceptionally well, earning high praise. The people adore him. When he returns to the capital, he might even get promoted." I paused for a moment, then chuckled lightly. "No promotion is coming. By marrying me, the daughter of a disgraced official, he had cut off his own career path. There was no chance of promotion in this lifetime. But it wasn't entirely without hope." "What did you say?" Chuanxi was a bit hard of hearing. I smiled at her. "You go out." "Oh, I'd like some pear puree cake. Go check if there's any on the street." Perhaps it had been too long since I last smiled at her. Overjoyed, she nodded and immediately ran out. I closed the courtyard gate securely. I washed my face, drew my eyebrows, put on my favorite pair of magnolia hairpins, and took out the vial of long-hidden red arsenic from the bottom of the chest. Then I brewed a fresh pot of tea, poured in all the red crest of crane poison, stirred it well, found a sunny little corner, sat in the wicker chair, and leisurely drank the entire cup. The letter in my hand was crumpled into a ball. On it was the news of my parents' death from illness in Ninguta. Today, I was going to reunite with them. Before my father was imprisoned, he had a premonition. To save my life, he decided to marry me off, so that I would no longer be a daughter of the Shui family. When disaster struck our clan, I could escape unscathed. He exhausted all his efforts just to protect me. But did he ever consider that with the family destroyed and everyone gone, I couldn't survive alone in this world? The poison of red-crowned crane worked swiftly. After a period of agony, I curled up in the corner, bleeding from all 7 orifices, my nails clawing deep into the dirt. By the time Chuanxi returned, I was already beyond saving. I hope I didn't scare her. As I thought this, I realized I was floating in the air, watching Chuanxi wailing loudly as she hurriedly carried me to find a doctor. It was no use. With the red-crowned crane poison ingested, not even a deity could save me. That night, I breathed my last. Chuanxi sent a carrier pigeon message to Yenmen. And on the 4th day, Gu Xingyuan returned, from Yenmen to the capital, a journey that normally takes 10 days on foot. He rode day and night, changing several horses, and made it back in just 3 days. His eyes were bloodshot, his face haggard. The moment he dismounted, he rushed straight to me. At that time, my coffin had not yet been made, and my body was placed on a small couch. Fortunately, the freezing weather had prevented it from decaying. Gu Xingyuan held me trembling all over in agony, choking back sobs, seeing, "Why must you treat me like this?" Veins bulged on his forehead, and moments later, he actually vomited a mouthful of blood. I looked at him, utterly bewildered. "Gu Xingyuan, I treated you so poorly, why are you still grieving for me? With my death, you are no longer the son-in-law of a disgraced official, your career will flourish, and you'll rise to great heights, you should be happy." But Gu Xingyuan couldn't hear me, he just held me tightly. Refusing to let go, Chuanqi stood nearby, her eyes already swollen from crying, sobbing that it was all her fault and urging Gu Xingyuan to restrain his sorrow, lest he harm his health. Gu Xingyuan seemed not to hear, holding me in his arms, looking utterly disheveled, sitting like that until dawn. When Chuanqi came to see him again, she was startled. His hair had turned completely white. I watched here all night, still unable to understand why Gu Xingyuan was so heartbroken. When my father first sought to marry me off, he pleaded for a long time, yet no one in the capital dared to take on this hot potato. Even my childhood sweetheart, Shinimo, the assistant minister of the Court of Judicial Review, avoided me like the plague. Just as I was losing all hope, Gu Xingyuan came to propose marriage. He was the newly appointed Tanhua, the third highest scorer in the imperial examinations, a man of extraordinary talent, noble character, and striking good looks. Even the prime minister had offered him his daughter's hand in marriage, which he declined, only to turn around and choose to marry me, a walking disaster. When asked why, he said that upon arriving in the capital, my father had once given him a bowl of water to quench his thirst. Marrying me, he claimed, was his way of repaying that single act of kindness. But if it was just because of a bowl of water, Gu Xingyuan, why would you grieve to such an extent after my death? I sat in front of Gu Xingyuan, studying him carefully. To be honest, I had never really looked at him properly before, barely remembering what he looked like, but now, upon closer inspection, I realized his face was exceptionally handsome. Deep-set eyes, cold and elegant features, exactly my type. To have left such a beauty untouched for 3 years, I must have been truly blind. It's a pity, but I'm already dead. A gust of wind blew by, and my spirit gradually turned transparent. I think I'm about to leave. Gu Xingyuan's hair was tousled by the wind. He held me motionless, his gaze lifeless, like a walking corpse. I reached out to wipe Gu Xingyuan's face. "Don't be sad anymore. From now on, no one will hold you back. Go ahead and get promoted. I'll be ascending to heaven." I drifted away with the wind, gradually losing consciousness. "Madam, a letter from Lord Gu has arrived. Madam, please wake up." Chuanqi's incessant chattering made my ears ache, rubbing my forehead. I irritably opened my eyes. "All right, Chuanqi, I understand." As I finished speaking, I suddenly froze. Wasn't I supposed to be dead? I looked down and saw my hands were alive and warm, even feeling the heat from the charcoal fire. It was utterly unbelievable. "Chuanqi, am I still alive, madam? Are you still half asleep? Whoever heard of someone dying from an afternoon nap?" Chuanqi stared at me with wide, round eyes. Only then did I notice that Chuanqi was a bit shorter, her face rounder and much more youthful than I remembered. I lifted my gaze to look around. I found myself by a small window in a tea house, outside of which the streets were bustling with pedestrians. The women passing by all wore the falling plum blossom makeup, a style that had been all the rage a year ago. "Chuanqi, what year is this?" "It's the 10th year of Shangbao now." "Oh no, madam, it's only been a year since Master Gu left for Yenmen, and I've already let you become so confused. When he returns, I'm afraid I'm done for." Chuanqi pouted, her face full of worry. I was stunned for a moment, then suddenly pinched myself hard. The sharp pain made me realize I was alive, and I had gone back a year in time. This was the year before my parents fell ill and passed away, a sudden jolt in my mind. I abruptly remembered that just before my consciousness faded, inexplicable sheets of paper had floated before my eyes, densely covered with the word injustice. Could it be hinting at something? Did the heavens grant me this rebirth, perhaps, to allow me to clear my father's name? The tea-house entrance suddenly grew lively. Snapping out of my thoughts, I glanced over and abruptly met a pair of amber eyes. It was none other than the Vice Minister of the Court of Judicial Review, Shinimo. He looked at me, stunned for a moment, before a colleague beside him teased, "Lord Shin, seeing an old flame, aren't you going to say hello?" Shinimo frowned, his expression full of disgust, his tone icy. "I have no connection with this woman, Lord Yang. If you enjoy spouting nonsense so much, be careful someone cuts out your tongue in the middle of the night." The corner of my mouth twitched. Back then, I adored Shinimo, poured my heart and soul into him. The whole city knew it. Yet after my family fell into ruin, he shut his door on me, chilling my heart long ago, and now, he still has the gall to scorn me. Ridiculous. I stood up and left immediately. "Chuanchi, let's go home. Even having a peaceful cup of tea can bring us face to face with this jinx. What rotten luck." Shinimo's eyelids twitched slightly as he calmly averted his gaze, his slender fingers tightening imperceptibly within his sleeves. As I stepped out of the tea house, fragmented images of floating papers kept flashing through my mind. I pondered them repeatedly but ultimately couldn't make sense of it. Chuanchi hurried after me, anxiously saying, "Madam, you haven't read Lord Gu's letter yet, Gu Xingyuan." I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at the letter in her hand. The image of Gu Xingyuan vomiting blood when I died flashed through my mind, leaving me momentarily dazed. He had been at Yenmen for a year, and I had never sent him a single word, yet he still wrote back punctually every month, stubborn to the point of being incomprehensible. "Give it to me, I'll take a look." I took the letter, opened it, and there were still those 4 ordinary words, "All is well, don't worry." My heart ached inexplicably. All his hidden affection, all the expectations buried deep in his heart, were entrusted to these 4 short words. Ahead, many women were gathered together, noisy and bustling, holding a large bundle of items. Seemingly entrusting something to someone, Chuanchi looked around and said, "The weather's turned cold. All these ladies have made winter clothes to send to their husbands at the frontier. I wonder if Yenmen is cold too." Minister Gu left wearing such thin clothes. He must be freezing by now. Ah, it's so cold. Everyone else has winter clothes, only he doesn't. How pitiful. Well, never mind. He's probably used to it by now. Every word Chuanchi spoke was loaded with hints. How had I never noticed before? No, it wasn't that I hadn't noticed. I just hadn't cared. Suddenly, I felt utterly despicable. "All right, Chuanchi." I rubbed my forehead. "Go buy 2 ready-made outfits and send them to Lord Gu. There's no time to make them now, but I suppose he wouldn't care whether I made them myself or not. Having something is better than nothing." Chuanchi blinked, as if she couldn't believe it, then nodded vigorously. "Yes, madam. Oh, madam. Would you like to send a letter along with them?" I've never written him a letter before. I've always treated him poorly, so suddenly sending a letter to show concern might seem a bit odd. Forget it. I might as well write. I stepped into a post station, asked for paper and pen, and pondered for a long time, unsure of what to write. I looked up out the window, unnoticed by me. Thick snowflakes had begun to fall in flurries, mingling with the lively bustle of the world outside. The new year is almost here. In my past life, Gu Xingyuan returned before the new year. At that time, I treated him with great indifference, reciting Buddhist scriptures in my room, refusing to see him even once. On New Year's Eve, he came to invite me to stay up late together, but I found him annoying and splashed a cup of cold tea at him, then shut the door tightly. He stood alone outside the house, watching the snow fall in the courtyard, his damp hair frosted over. Only after the New Year's firecrackers had finished did he murmur to himself, "Madam, Happy New Year. May it always be like this, with each year bringing new blessings." After that, he never came to see me again, even on the day he returned to Yenmen. He specifically instructed Chuanchi not to tell me, so as not to disturb my peace. Every past kindness he showed me feels as fresh as yesterday, and looking back, I realize how truly cold-hearted I was. I let out a soft sigh, lowered my head, and earnestly wrote down 8 characters. "The year draws to a close. I long for your early return." After sending the letter and winter clothes, Chuanchi was so overjoyed that she kept repeating along the way, "When Lord Gu receives them, he will surely be delighted. I don't know if he'll be happy, and I don't have time to think about it right now. All I want is to clear my father's name. After much deliberation, I could only start by secretly monitoring those who had accused my father in the previous life. Whether I was on the wrong track or they were being overly cautious, after nearly a month of surveillance, I had gained nothing. The situation had once again reached a deadlock. It wasn't until the 20th day of the 12th lunar month, when I passed by the Dolly Temple, that I saw from a distance the bailiffs moving things in and out like ants. Out of curiosity, I asked and learned that the Dolly Temple had fallen into disrepair over the years, with several rooms collapsing. They were now sorting things out in preparation for renovations. I suddenly had an idea. The Dolly Temple is in chaos right now. Perhaps I can take this opportunity to get a look at the case files regarding my father. The only person I know at the Dolly Temple is Shinimo, and just last month, I scolded him at the tea house. How reckless of me. Had I known he'd be useful, I could have just endured it. What harm would that have done? I was at a loss. After much deliberation, I finally bought a dozen small gifts and mustered the courage to seek out Shinimo. In the past, when the Shin and Shui families were on good terms, I could enter the Shin residence whenever I wished. But now that my family had fallen from grace, I stood outside the gate and waited for a full half-hour before being led inside. I was received by Shinimo's mother. She stood under the eaves, her gaze sharp and unkind. Now that you're a married woman, why are you still pestering my second son? It wasn't convenient for me to explain the purpose of my visit, so I simply smiled faintly. I've known Shin Lang since childhood. We're very close friends, since my marriage. We haven't had the chance to meet today, as it happens to be Shin Lang's day off. I came to visit and catch up. Or perhaps you still harbor improper thoughts about my second son. Her scornful look made me feel as if needles were pricking my back. But since I was here to ask for a favor, I dared not act recklessly. Swallowing my pride, I softened my smile further. Auntie, you misunderstand. Since my marriage, my husband and I have been deeply devoted to each other. Our love is beyond measure. How could I possibly entertain improper thoughts about another? Love and affection. I've heard that in the 2 years since you got married, you've barely exchanged a few words with Gu Xingyuan. Is that what you call love and affection? What do outsiders know? Only the couple themselves can truly understand the depth of their affection. Take you and uncle, for example. Would you share the intimate details of your marital bed with outsiders, you, Shui Xing? How can a young lady like you speak of such things? Her face flushed with anger, and just then, the door behind her opened. Shinimo glanced at me indifferently and said, Mother, let her in. Oh dear, Erlong, why on earth would you want to see this jinx? Shinimo remained silent with a heavy gaze. His mother, unable to win the argument, flung her sleeve in frustration and stormed off. Shinimo turned to me. Speak, what is it? I scratched my head. Ahem, let's talk inside. I took a step forward, but he blocked me, leaving no room at all. Say it here, and leave quickly after you're done. I had no choice but to lower my voice. I'd like to ask for your help in finding my father's case file. Before he could finish speaking, his cold hand suddenly covered my mouth. He glanced around, then pulled me into the room, shut the door, and said sternly, What do you want that for? I shook off his hand and exclaimed urgently, Shinimo. My father was wrongfully accused. I want to review the case files to clear his name. Are you out of your mind? This is not something you should be looking into. Besides, he has already confessed, leaving no room for reversal. You're just wasting your effort. Whether it's a waste or not, we won't know until we try. Shinimo, my father treated you so well back then. Can't you just help him? You have no idea what this case involves. Shui Xing. The Shin family has been a prestigious clan for centuries. I cannot let it be destroyed by my own hands. I won't help you. He turned his face away coldly, refusing to look at me any longer. I looked at him, and my heart grew half cold again. Back when I begged him to marry me, he said the same thing. He said the Shin family was a prestigious clan of centuries, and as the eldest legitimate son, he had carried the high hopes of countless people since childhood. He couldn't ruin his future for me. So be it. After all, I hadn't held much hope before coming here. All right, I understand. Keep these boxes of pastries as a New Year's gift. I won't be coming for the holiday. I set down the gift and left in silence. Shinimo suddenly turned around. Shui seeing, stop investigating. I'm doing this for your own good, MMM. Without looking back, I opened the door and walked out, leaving the Shin residence. I looked up at the sky, feeling utterly powerless in my past life. My father told me not to interfere or do anything, and I obeyed, yet in the end, neither he nor my mother returned. In this life, I must do something, but what can I possibly do? The December wind cut like a knife, stinging my skin, lost in thought. I exhaled a warm breath to heat my hands. As I raised my head, I saw Chuanxi running through the snow, shouting, "Madam, Lord Gu has returned." When I rushed back, Gu Xingyuan and his party had already arrived at the doorstep. The snowstorm was raging. And he rode a white horse, his figure strikingly noble, yet behind him was only a solitary attendant, making the scene appear rather desolate. I felt a pang of guilt. Had it not been for marrying me, Gu Xingyuan would have already risen to prominence. Surrounded by followers, not as shabby as he was today, husband, I stopped in my tracks and called out to him with a smile. Gu Xingyuan turned his head and saw me. A flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes, but it was quickly suppressed. He dismounted, gripping the reins as he spoke with restraint and detachment. I'm back, standing face to face with him. We felt so unfamiliar, unlike a married couple at all, though I had planned to treat him better upon his return, like embracing him to warm his frostbitten hands, or telling him how much I had missed him and longed for his return. Yet when he truly stood before me, I found myself awkward and hesitant. Did he see the letter I sent? Why does he seem not particularly happy about it? I felt a bit insecure, but still walked over, forcing a smile as I looked at him. Why have you come back so early this year, with nothing urgent in Yenmen? I returned ahead of schedule, he replied. Then, gripping the reins tighter, he asked me, you wrote asking me to return early. Has something happened at home? I froze for a moment. Suddenly, I understood why he was like this. Because I had never been kind to him. Because I had never replied to his letters. So he instinctively assumed that my writing to him and sending him winter clothes must have been because something had happened at home, and I needed him to return. No, I looked at him, every word sincere. It's because I missed you. His hand stiffened, his heart clearly in turmoil, yet for some reason. He quickly regained his composure. After a moment of silence, he looked at me, his eyes tinged with faint desolation. Is that so? But you just returned from the Shin residence, didn't you? My lady, you've devoted yourself to Buddha for 2 years, living in utmost simplicity, yet today, you wore your old vibrant dress, just to see him. For a brief moment, my mind went blank. In my past life, my heart was ashen, spending each day with only the dim light of Buddha for company. Never bothering to dress up. In this life, I wanted to lift my spirits and live well. But I never expected to be misunderstood by him. I hurriedly explained, no, I didn't dress like this to see him, and the reason I'm looking for him is, mentioning the case files, something that could land me in jail, wasn't something I could casually share. Frustrated, I scratched my head and blurted out a lie. He owes me money, I'm just going to collect the debt. The excuse was so flimsy that he clearly didn't buy it. He turned away, looking both disappointed and hurt. Is that so? He smiled briefly, took a light breath to compose himself, and then glanced at me indifferently. If you say so, he replied. With that, he turned around to call his attendant. Ping'an, move these things to the study. I stood to the side, watching helplessly as he entered the house, his figure looking desolate. Chuanxi muttered anxiously, what's wrong with Lord Gu? I steadied myself and hurried after him to stop him. Shall we move to the bedroom? It's too cold in the study, he replied indifferently. No need. I'm used to resting in the study. Then let me help you tidy up. No need. I'll go clean your room for you then. I wanted to run ahead of him, but my foot slipped and I nearly fell. Gu Xingyuan reacted swiftly to steady me, quickly withdrawing his hand afterward. He looked at me, his thin lips pressed tightly together. His emotions barely contained, seeing, his ink-dark eyes fixed on me, his voice trembling slightly. If there's anything you need me to do, just say it, I'll do it for you. You don't have to humble yourself like this. I was left speechless. He was serious. He didn't believe I'd suddenly changed my attitude toward him. He'd rather think I wanted to use him. In the end, it was because of how terribly I'd treated him before. When Chuanxi and Pingyan went to cook, I stood silently at the study door. Watching him organize his things, I sighed, suddenly feeling how hard life was. I had been reborn, wanting to clear my father's name, but after a month, there was still no progress. I wanted to be kinder to Gu Xingyuan, but I messed it up the moment we met. My eyes reddened, and I stood at the doorway shedding tears, staring at Gu Xingyuan, neither speaking nor leaving. Gu Xingyuan walked over helplessly. Stop crying, it's so cold outside. What if you freeze? I threw myself into his arms. You still care if I'm cold? If you're going to be this heartless, you might as well let me freeze to death out here. His body stiffened, his heart racing wildly, but he didn't know what to do. We had never been physically close before, and he wasn't used to it. Where have I been heartless? His voice trembled. You don't need this, you don't need that. Completely blind to my care, only imagining things about me. I held him tighter, looking at him sincerely. Gu Xingyuan, I've figured it out. I want to be good to you. It was my fault for not treating you well before. I'll never be like that again. Can we live well together from now on? He stared at me blankly. I knew he still didn't believe me, but in the end, he still gave in to the bright future I described. Even if he suspected a chasm lay ahead, he couldn't resist taking a step forward to see. All right, then why don't you hug me? All right. Warm hands clumsily touched my back. I couldn't see his expression, only feeling his hands silently tightening around me. I giggled quietly in his arms. I knew this trick would definitely work. During dinner that night, I kept adding dishes to Gu Xingyuan's plate. He was extremely obedient. Whatever I served him, he ate. Though he barely spoke a word, at night when resting, he habitually went to the study again. I directly grabbed the quilt and went to find him. He was sitting at the desk, writing his official report, and looked up in surprise when he saw me open the door and enter, wrapped in the quilt. I obediently sat down beside him. Let me grind the ink for you. He put down his pen and tried to shoo me away. No need, it's cold, you should rest early. I won't. I stubbornly moved closer to him and shared half of the blanket with him, draping it over his legs. It's so cold, your study doesn't even have a brazier, and you're dressed so lightly, you don't take care of yourself at all. Be careful not to develop chronic leg pain from the cold. When you're old and your legs ache, I won't take care of you. Come on, cover up properly. The warm blanket settled over his legs. He glanced at me and, unable to refuse, his aloof gaze finally softened. All right, he didn't say much more, just turned his head, picked up the pen, and continued writing his documents. Gu Xingyuan's handwriting is truly beautiful, bold and powerful, yet still refined. No wonder he was the Tanhua, third-place scholar in imperial examinations. His writing is as elegant as he is, but his hands were cracked from the cold, looking painfully severe. My eyes reddened slightly, and I couldn't help but ask him, Gu Xingyuan, does your hand hurt? He paused, writing as he spoke. It doesn't hurt. The bitter cold of Yanmen often causes frostbite. My minor injuries are nothing compared to the commoners who froze to death there. But now that the rebels have been eliminated and people's livelihoods restored, no one will freeze to death anymore. My heart clenched. I had often heard people say that Gu Xingyuan held extremely high prestige in Yanmen. It was no wonder the people revered him, given how deeply he cared for them. I leaned on the table, gazing at him with growing fondness. Such a person should not remain forever in obscurity, with their ambitions left unfulfilled. Since I've been reborn, I must live well. Not only to save my father and mother, but also to salvage the official career that Gu Xingyuan ruined. After a long while, he noticed my gaze and turned to look at me. What are you smiling about? I blinked. I'm happy. How did I manage to find such a wonderful husband, so handsome and noble in character? His ears suddenly turned red, and he turned away with a hint of panic. What are you talking about? He wrote a few words, then set down the pen. It's too late. You should go back to sleep. I won't. I'll wait for you. I squeezed closer to him, and he trembled slightly, restraining himself as he spoke calmly. No need to wait for me. When I'm tired, I'll rest in the study. I want to sleep with you. Husband, let's go to the bedroom. Okay. We are husband and wife after all." His breath hitched, as if holding back with great effort, seeing, "Be good, I don't want you to regret this later." Before he could say more, I stood up and wrapped my arms around his neck, pressing a kiss to his lips. Gu Xingyuan's body stiffened, his heart pounding wildly, his ink-dark eyes fixed on my lips, wavering for a moment before, as if bewitched, he gripped my waist and kissed me fiercely. My entire body went limp, feeling as if he was about to meld me into his very being. I never knew a scholar could possess such strength. In the final moment before reason fled, he asked me in a hoarse voice, "Shui Xing, are you certain? Don't regret it." At dawn the next day, Gu Xingyuan wrapped me in a quilt and carried me back to the bedroom. As he opened the door, we happened to encounter Chuanxi and Ping'an getting up to sweep the courtyard. The two of them were young and stood frozen in shock for a long moment before finally snapping out of it. Then, blushing with embarrassment, they both lowered their heads and ran away. Gu Xingyuan gently placed me on the bed, his eyes carrying a faint smile. "Sleep a little longer, I'm off to court." I obediently nodded. He kissed my forehead and was about to leave when he suddenly turned back to ask, "Is there anything you'd like? I'll bring it for you when I return." "I want pear paste cake." "All right." He smiled gently before finally leaving. I slept until noon before getting up. After having my meal, I took Chuanxi out to shop for New Year's goods. In the afternoon, I went to the courier station again to find a way to send some clothes and medicine for colds to my parents. They were exiled to Ninguda, where they were constantly guarded by special personnel. Under normal circumstances, neither letters nor supplies could reach them. Only during the new year would the guards show some leniency. I slipped a letter into the package, mentioning only that I was doing well and urging them to take care of their health. Beyond that, I dared not write anything else, for the letter would be thoroughly inspected multiple times from the moment it was sent until it reached Ninguda. On my way back, I happened to encounter Gu Xingyuan returning from court. He didn't notice me, as he was standing in front of a jewelry shop, carefully selecting items. I held Chuanxi back, signaling her to stay quiet, and the two of us hid nearby. Secretly watching him, the jewelry shop owner recognized Gu Xingyuan and greeted him with a smile. "Master Gu, picking out jewelry for your wife?" Gu Xingyuan nodded with a smile, holding 2 hairpins in his hand, his eyes brimming with tenderness that seemed almost liquid. "Have you made your choice, sir?" "I can't help but feel that any of them would look beautiful on her." "Then take both, my lord. Since you dote on your wife so much, she will surely be delighted." Gu Xingyuan gave a faint smile and handed both hairpins to the shopkeeper. "Wrap them carefully." "I'll take both." Right away, hiding behind. I was overjoyed upon hearing this, and Chuanxi was so excited she kept tugging at my clothes. I was just about to run over to find Gu Xingyuan when suddenly I heard a commotion behind me. "Catch the fugitive! Catch the fugitive!" A horse came galloping wildly, causing chaos wherever it went. Chickens scattered and dogs barked. Many people were knocked down, wailing in pain. Pedestrians rushed to the roadside, overturning street stalls along the way, with fruits and vegetables rolling everywhere. Chuanxi and I were also pushed into a narrow gap. Gu Xingyuan turned his head to look, his expression changing instantly, and he ran toward the fugitive, unarmed. Why did he run after that villain, Gu? Before I could finish calling out, I saw him push off the ground, leap onto a horse, and grab the fugitive. The two tumbled to the ground together. A cold glint flashed as the fugitive drew a knife and slashed at him. He dodged sideways, seized the knife in a countermove, and with a swift motion, severed the fugitive's feet. Blood gushed, and the severed limbs rolled away. I stood frozen in place, staring blankly at Gu Xingyuan. 2 or 3 drops of blood splattered on his face, his gaze cold and terrifying. Like a wild wolf in the mountains, the fugitive collapsed stiffly beside him, staining the long street with blood, wailing incessantly. He merely glanced indifferently before tossing the blade to the approaching soldiers, flashing his waist token with a chilling tone, "Drag him away." As the half-dead man at his feet was carried off, he finally looked up and spotted me in the crowd. He froze for a moment, and in that instant, the ferocity in his eyes crumbled away completely. Resignation. He ran over, looking at me in panic, wanting to reach out to pull me, but then noticed his hands were stained with blood. Hastily, he clenched them and hid them behind his back. He stared at me, too flustered to speak. I knew he was afraid of frightening me, afraid I would despise him once again, but he underestimated me. I steadied myself, said nothing, took a handkerchief from my sleeve, walked over, grabbed his hidden hand, and carefully wiped it clean. He was surprised for a moment, then gradually calmed down, trying to pull his hand back. Don't touch it, it's dirty. I held on tightly, lowering my head to wipe it slowly. With a light-hearted tone, ask him, you're the third-ranked scholar, not the martial arts champion. Where did you learn all these fighting skills? He lowered his gaze. The Yenmen region was overrun by bandits. Stay there long enough, and you'll naturally pick it up. Bandits ran rampant. Just how much hardship did he endure in those years? My nose tingled with sourness, and I nearly burst into tears, quickly taking deep breaths to hold them back. Where's the hairpin you bought me? I demanded. Hands on my hips, I'll go get it now. And what about my pear blossom cake? Did you forget? I bought it, called for delivery, and had it sent home. He looked down at me with a smile. How dare I forget what my wife has asked of me? After that day, Gu Xingyuan and I truly lived like an ordinary couple, enjoying a few peaceful days. During the day, he attended court while I went about my own affairs, and at night, we would snuggle together playing chess or reading. In just a few days, it will be the new year. As I watched the fireworks soaring into the sky from all directions, a sense of melancholy filled my heart. I wondered how the new year was celebrated in Ninguta. During these days, I had uncovered some clues. The witnesses who testified against my father all seemed to have close ties to a certain brothel, but the exact nature of these connections remained unclear to me. One more year, I clenched my fists, silently resolving that if I couldn't overturn the verdict, I would even turn to banditry to rescue my parents. What are you thinking about, Jing? Gu Xingyuan suddenly appeared behind me. I was startled and tried to cover it up. Nothing. I hadn't told him about the matter of clearing my father's name. After all, it was dangerous, and I didn't want to drag him into it, yet he seemed to see through something. Are you thinking about your parents? How did you know? His gaze flickered slightly as he looked at me, ultimately masking his thoughts and saying, just a guess, don't worry. I've sent someone to Ninguta to check on them. They're doing fine. Good, that's good. Thank you. I smiled at him. He fell silent. The atmosphere became somewhat awkward for a moment. I cleared my throat lightly and, gazing at the distant fireworks from some wealthy household, remarked with emotion, how beautiful, don't you think? He smiled and asked me, do you want to set off some fireworks? Wishing is useless anyway. These things aren't for ordinary people to use. Then wait for me. I'll be back in no time. I grabbed hold of him. Where are you going? All the shops are closed today. There's nowhere to buy anything. Just wait for me. Lock the door well. There are many petty thieves during the holidays. He patted my hand, called for Ping'an, and they both went out together. I waited at home, and in no more than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, someone knocked on the door. Here you are. How did you get here so fast? I rushed ahead of Chuanxi and eagerly opened the door, but the person standing before me was Shinimo. Dressed in a black robe that covered him from head to toe, only his fox-like eyes were visible, giving off a mysterious vibe as if he feared being recognized. How did you get here? He said. New Year's greetings. It's the custom to return the courtesy. How unusual. Puzzled, I looked at him and saw his eyes darting around as he glanced into the courtyard. Is Gu Xingyuan here? I scoffed. Why do you care if he's here or not? You're here to pay New Year's greetings, not to have an affair. How vulgar, he remarked coolly. His words left me speechless. After a moment, I stepped aside and said, since you're here, have a cup of tea. As if he'd been waiting for this invitation, he immediately stepped forward. Then I'll gladly accept your hospitality. What a detestable person. What on earth did I ever see in him? Furious, I kicked at his retreating back. I saw that. How childish. Still the same even after marriage, he sneered. Then he stood in the courtyard, removed his hood, and surveyed my home. Finally, he let out a mocking chuckle. A distinguished Tanhua scholar, yet living in such a shabby place. I also sneered. He's not like you, born into a noble family with centuries of prestige. Where would he get such a grand house to live in? He could have had one, but he chose to marry you, ruining his own future. How foolish. What exactly are you trying to say? What does it matter to you if my family's house is shabby? Nothing, just musing aloud. You've learned to endure hardship. Good for you. Love makes even water taste sweet. As long as Brother Gu treats me well, I don't feel any hardship. He was left speechless by my words, sulking in silence. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him anymore and said, "Come in and sit for a while." "I won't come in." He handed me a package with a calm expression. "Happy New Year. Is this your return gift?" "What is it?" "It's so light. The gift I bought you was quite expensive." I unwrapped the package and was instantly stunned. It was a case file. "Shinimo, you." I was so moved that tears welled up in my eyes. Not knowing what to say, he couldn't be bothered to look at me. "If you want to read it, hurry up. Return it to me when you're done." "Thank you." Holding the case files, I rushed into the study, with Shinimo following closely behind. I raised the lamp and examined it closely, indeed discovering numerous issues. This case file was riddled with inconsistencies and errors, yet they used it to convict my father. "Shinimo, look, these people's statements don't add up. It's clearly a frame-up. Someone must have instructed them to harm my father." Shinimo tucked his hands into his sleeves and turned his head away. "Don't tell me these things. I'm deaf. I can't hear." I lowered my head and continued poring over the file, but it was so thick that I couldn't finish it in a short while. The door was knocked again, and I hurriedly hid the files. Chuanxi rushed to open the door, and from afar, I could already hear Pingin's laughter. "My lord, after Madam finishes, could you let me have a go too? Look, I braved the wind and snow to accompany you. If not for merit, at least for toil." Gu Xingyuan scoffed lightly. "Go ask Madam, these are all hers." "Yes, yes, even you, my lord, are hers." Gu Xingyuan didn't speak, carrying a box of fireworks as he entered the door, only to look up and see me, and Shinimo beside me. His footsteps suddenly halted as he looked at Shinimo, the smile in his eyes fading, replaced by a barely perceptible panic. My heart clenched, and I too felt a surge of fear, rushing over in quick strides. "Husband, you're back. Are these fireworks? Put them down quickly. Why are you still holding them when they're so heavy? Don't move. I'll place it myself." As soon as he bent down to set the firework in place, I immediately threw myself into his arms and hugged him. "You're the best, husband. Are your hands cold?" "Oh, they're so chilly. Let me warm them up for you." I grabbed Gu Xingyuan's hands, rubbed them between mine, then pressed them against my cheeks to warm them, sneaking a quick kiss on the back of his hand while smiling up at him. His gaze gradually softened into tranquility. Then he turned to look at Shinimo. I also turned around and only then noticed Shinimo standing under the eaves, silently watching us, his face as dark as charcoal. Gu Xingyuan gave a perfunctory shallow bow. "Magistrate Shin." Shinimo ignored him, only asking me coldly, "Are you going to review the case files or not? If not, I'm taking them away." "Oh no. Shinimo probably doesn't know yet that I've been keeping it from Gu Xingyuan, but it's okay. I'll find a way to smooth it over later. I still need to read it, but there's just too much in these files to finish in a short time. Could you leave them with me for a day? I'll return them to you tomorrow." "You need another day to read them." Shinimo took a deep breath and said, "Shui Seeing, remember this, you stole the dossier. I didn't give it to you." I nodded. "Don't worry. I won't drag you into this. You'd better keep your word." He snorted coldly, then pulled on his hood and left in a hurry. I really don't understand him. So afraid of being implicated, yet braving the wind and snow to deliver the case files to me. He came all this way, but not a single kind word. As if terrified someone might remember a shred of his kindness. How awkward. After Shinimo left, Gu Xingyuan indeed asked me, "What case files?" "Ah, it's nothing, just a storybook. You wouldn't like it, is that so?" Yeah. I smiled and looked up. But the moment my eyes met Gu Xingyuan's, my mind suddenly went blank, though he said nothing and simply gazed at me quietly. His eyes held a trace of disappointment and loneliness, clearly deeply hurt. I remember when we first married. He tried to get close to me, hoping I would lean on him and trust him, but back then, I was drowning in my own misery. utterly disillusioned with life, and repeatedly pushed him away harshly. Gradually, the way he looked at me changed. Filled with disappointment and loneliness, just like today. Lately, though I've been treating him well, it seems far from enough for him. I've always had a vague sense that he's enduring, accommodating, and waiting, yet I don't know the reason why. Now, I suddenly understand that what he truly desires is not just superficial happiness, but my trust in him, my reliance on him, and a relationship with no secrets between us, where we are united as one. I changed my mind and took Gu Xingyuan's hand. You do it. I led him into the study, took out the case files, and flipped through them for him to see. He looked down at me, momentarily surprised. This is the case file of my father's case. I've always wanted to clear his name, which is why I went to Shinimo and begged him to let me see the files. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you earlier because I was afraid of dragging you into this. I know. He looked at me and suddenly smiled. I've known what you've been doing these days. I was just waiting for you to tell me yourself. Seeing, I'm really happy that you could share this with me. Do you know, I suddenly looked up at him, feeling both happy about his words and beginning to worry. But what I'm doing is very dangerous, Gu Xingyuan. I don't want to drag you into this. Now that you know, let's separate. If anything happens in the future, you won't be. Before I could finish, Gu Xingyuan pulled me into his arms and kissed me until I quieted down. I'm not afraid of being implicated. I'm only afraid you won't trust me. Gu Xingyuan and I spent the night reviewing case files, making a copy. I couldn't discern much on my own, but Gu Xingyuan, being part of the official circles, saw far more hidden information than I did. Like unraveling silk from a cocoon, he quickly pieced together the clues. You mentioned you recently discovered those people had close ties to a certain brothel. That fits. The brothel's hidden owner is surnamed Zhuang, who privately conducts business with many nobles. His cousin happens to be the steward of Hanpa, the current imperial uncle. These two brothers are Hanpo's lackeys. Your father once impeached Hanpa. The mastermind behind this is self-evident. Hanpa, the elder brother of Consort Han. I was momentarily startled. Who doesn't know of Consort Han? Her favor surpasses even that of the Empress, and Hanpa, a powerful minister second only to the Emperor. Never had I imagined that the one who sought to harm my father would be such a prominent figure. After a brief pause, I clenched my fist. What does it matter if he's a powerful minister? My father is innocent, and I will surely clear his name. Calm down. Seeing, Gu Xingyuan said solemnly, Hanpa holds a high position and great power. With our strength alone, it's difficult to move against him. Do you think your father didn't know he was framed? Why did he confess? Why didn't he appeal? Because he couldn't afford to provoke Hanpa. Even if we find evidence, there's no avenue for appeal. His influence permeates every corner of the capital. No one dares to judge him. There's only one person in this world who can help us. All of Hanpo's glory and favor come from this one person. I was taken aback for a moment, then quickly realized, you mean, him? Gu Xingyuan nodded. This person, who proclaims himself the smartest in the world, hates nothing more than being deceived. Hanpa is his most obedient dog. He doesn't care whether Hanpa has harmed anyone. He only cares if Hanpa is loyal and obedient. And from what I know, Hanpa has secretly done many things that defy him. I understand. Hanpa was deeply favored by that man. If I were to directly accuse Hanpa of framing my father, that man might not intervene, and instead, Hanpa could seize the opportunity to retaliate. But if that man were to learn that Hanpa was being duplicitous and defying his orders, the situation would be entirely different. To save my father, I must first bring down Hanpa. What we lack now is evidence of Hanpa deceiving that man. After a night of discussion, I had a clear plan, and my constantly anxious heart finally settled a bit. I hid the copied case files and, early on the morning of New Year's Day, disguised myself and entered the Shin residence through the back door to return the original files to Shinimo. He seemed to have anticipated when I would arrive and specifically sent someone to escort me in. You're quite true to your word. Shinimo took the case file and casually asked, Did you notice anything? I said in surprise. Aren't you deaf? He choked up. I couldn't help but laugh. All right, Shinimo, this case file is very useful. Gu Xingyuan, and I have deduced that the mastermind behind this is likely Han Pa. I now know what needs to be done, Han Pa." He was startled. Yet it seemed he had expected it. "That's the all-powerful imperial uncle. Even if you have evidence, you can't sue him. His influence is everywhere in the capital. No one dares to touch him." "Your words sound exactly like what Gu Xingyuan said." He looked utterly disdainful. "Don't compare me to him. Don't flatter yourself. Who's comparing you to him?" He gritted his teeth. "You, just leave already." "Fine, I'm leaving then, Shinimo. Thank you for being willing to help me." "I didn't help you." Got it. "Don't worry, I won't drag you into this." He silently glanced at me, turned his face away in a sulk, and stopped speaking. I bowed slightly to him, then turned and headed home. But suddenly, he cursed at my back. "Go ahead, Shui Seeing. No matter what mess you stir up, I won't help you again. Even if you die, I'll only clap and cheer." I paused for a moment. Turning back, I smiled at him. "Understood, Lord Shin." He slammed the door in annoyance. I began searching for evidence of Han Po's deception, manipulation, and abuse of power. With the help of Gu Xingyuan, a seasoned official, everything became much easier. A few days later, the brothel closely associated with Han Pa announced it would host a grand banquet of courtesans. So we decided to seize the opportunity to infiltrate and investigate. To avoid being recognized, we all disguised ourselves. So many familiar faces. "Look at those gentlemen. They've even been guests at my home before. They seemed so upright and virtuous. Yet here they are, indulging in the pleasures of a brothel. Most officials are hypocrites. It's hardly surprising anymore." "What about you?" Gu Xingyuan smiled and said. "Me, naturally. I'm a pristine white lotus, untainted by the mud I grew from." We walked a bit further inside, and within a few steps, Gu Xingyuan was stopped by someone. A voluptuous woman swayed over, smiling brightly at Gu Xingyuan. "Oh my, young master, your face is unfamiliar. Is this your first time visiting a brothel?" As she spoke, several beauties gathered around them. "What a handsome young master." "No way, Gu Xingyuan has a full beard. Where's the handsomeness in that? Would the young master like some company?" "To be honest, I've also studied poetry and music." Another woman smiled sweetly at Gu Xingyuan, as if she'd pay him just for a nod of approval. Gu Xingyuan smiled politely. "It's still early, no rush. I'll take another look." Hearing this, the group didn't press further and turned to leave. "TSK, meaning he doesn't think much of us. Let's go. In the end, I'm just not worthy." The beautiful women left, and Gu Xingyuan took me upstairs, casually observing while strolling around. I stared blankly at the women downstairs who were walking around soliciting customers. Gu Xingyuan asked me quietly, "What's wrong?" I shook my head and sighed. She also studied poetry and literature, once a cultured and well-mannered person. How could she end up in such a place of pleasure? Gu Xingyuan also looked at her, his expression complicated. Perhaps she was sold, or maybe she was abducted. Han Pa, to consolidate his position, has opened such brothels everywhere to win over officials. And these women gathered from all over are all sacrifices on his path to success. How utterly detestable. Gu Xingyuan lowered his gaze and secretly squeezed my hand. The case will be overturned, the wicked will be punished, and the world will surely become clear and just. I nodded, then looked downstairs and suddenly my eyes lit up. Gu Xingyuan, look, the owner of the brothel is Zhuang Han. As soon as he entered, he headed straight upstairs, judging by his expression. It seemed there was something urgent. Exchanging a glance with Gu Xingyuan, we silently followed him and noticed that Zhuang Han entered a room on the top floor. He emerged only after a long while, appearing composed as he went downstairs to attend to the guests. There must be some secret in that room. We pretended to be idle as we made our way upstairs, where a burly man stood guard at the top floor stairwell. Gu Xingyuan feigned asking him where the restroom was and, taking advantage of his distraction, struck him unconscious with a single blow. He then dragged the man into an empty room, locked him inside, and swiftly led me into the small room where Zhuang Han had entered. After some searching, we indeed discovered the hidden mechanism. Behind the bookshelf lay the letters exchanged between Zhuang Han and Han Pa. Such things should have been burned, but Zhuang Han, keeping an escape route for himself, had hidden the letters away. Just as we were examining the letters, however, the door was suddenly kicked open. Zhuang Han, for some reason, turned back and came with a group to block our way. The madam who had just received us stood behind Zhuang Han, hands on her hips, and scolded. I knew there was something off about you two. Oh no. Several men charged at us with clubs. Gu Xingyuan kicked over a table, knocking them aside, then grabbed me and leaped through the window, fleeing down the corridor. Someone behind us set a fire, and thick smoke billowed out. The brothel was thrown into chaos as everyone scrambled to escape. Gu Xingyuan and I were pursued relentlessly until we found ourselves cornered with no way out. Zhuang Han arrived with his blade, sneering. Let's see where you can run now. Protected behind Gu Xingyuan, my hands and feet turned icy cold. With so many thugs, there was no way we could escape. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, I said guiltily. But Gu Xingyuan just smiled. What are you talking about? Ever since you saved me on the official road that year, I decided I would live for you in this lifetime. Did I save him? I froze for a moment, then suddenly remembered. The year before my father was framed, he had taken me on an outing to the outskirts of the capital. On our way back, we unexpectedly encountered a man lying by the roadside. Feeling pity, I begged my father to help him. The sky was dim then, and from inside the carriage, I hadn't gotten a clear look at his face, so it was him. I suddenly felt both amused and exasperated. It was just a trivial matter. Gu Xingyuan, how could it be worth living for me? Zhuang Han charged forward with his blade, while Gu Xingyuan shielded me behind him, ready to fight to the death. However, with a sharp whistle, a dart shot through the air and knocked the blade from Zhuang Han's hand. Stop! A stern shout came from the doorway as numerous officers and soldiers rushed in. Zhuang Han clutched his hand, furious and flustered, roaring, "Who dares to interfere with the affairs of my Wanhua Tower?" A light scoff was heard, and a familiar figure appeared at the entrance. Clad in official robes, he stood with arms crossed, looking down at him with disdain. I, appointed by His Majesty himself, am the Vice Minister of the Dali Temple and Deputy Commander of the capital garrison. Tell me, do I have the authority to intervene or not, Shinimo? I never expected him to appear here. Zhuang Han frowned slightly and asked, "What brings you here?" Shinimo glanced at me and Gu Xingyuan, then said indifferently, "Someone reported that your Wanhua Tower has been imprisoning and abusing innocent young girls. I am here to conduct a search." Zhuang Han let out a loud laugh and swaggered forward. "Do you even know whose business Wanhua Tower is? A mere junior official from the Dali Temple dares to cause trouble here." The crimes of murder and robbery committed by Wanhua Tower were actually common knowledge. However, with Han Po's protection, no one dared to investigate, which was why Zhuang Han could act so brazenly. Shinimo sneered, his eyes suddenly flashing as he raised his hand and swiftly brought the blade down. Before Zhuang Han could even cry out, his head had already hit the ground. "Boss!" The thugs immediately rushed forward at the sight. Shinimo didn't move a muscle. Glancing at them sideways with a chilling tone, "Dare to come closer. And guess how many people this humble assistant minister of the Court of Judicial Review dares to kill?" The thugs were momentarily stunned, hesitating and not daring to advance. Shinimo waved his hand, and the soldiers behind him rushed forward. Capturing them all, the Wanhua Tower was soon engulfed in flames, its charred beams collapsing and swaying precariously. We hid in a distant tavern, watching the soldiers shuttle back and forth, carrying water to extinguish the fire. Gu Xingyuan led me to stand before Shinimo, and we bowed to him. "Thank you, Lord Shin." Shinimo didn't want to respond, but he did anyway. "You should thank your own good fortune for surviving. He's still as difficult to talk to as ever." I smiled helplessly and asked him, "How did you end up coming here?" Shinimo glanced at me and snorted coldly. "My attendant happened to pass by and saw the two of you trapped, so he rushed back to inform me." However, Gu Xingyuan and I were disguised so well that even Chuanxi couldn't recognize us. Unless his attendant had been following us from the moment we left, there was no way he could have coincidentally identified us. Still, I didn't expose him and awkwardly laughed. "Oh, your attendant is quite the kind soul, isn't he?" He choked on his words and stopped engaging with me. I asked him, "You killed Hanpo's men to save us. How do you plan to handle the aftermath?" He looked at me and said, "How dare you slander me out of thin air? Today, I acted on a report to rescue an innocent young girl who was imprisoned and abused. That's why I killed Zhuanghan. What do you mean to save you? I was just doing my official duty." Why would Hanpa risk offending our Shen family over such a trivial matter? So, that excuse wasn't improvised on the spot. It was premeditated, truly worthy of Shinimo, always leaving himself a way out. "By the way," Shinimo suddenly said, "did you find anything during your visit to the Wanhua Tower today? Surely you didn't come back empty-handed." "Not exactly. I pulled out the letter I had managed to snatch during the chaos from my pocket." Gu Xingyuan was surprised for a moment, then smiled with pursed lips and also pulled out a stack of letters from his pocket. "Truly worthy of being my husband." Shinimo looked at us and forced out a sentence through gritted teeth. "You two are quite in sync." Before leaving, Shinimo revealed another piece of news. Hanpa once had his ambitions swell to such an extent that he commissioned craftsmen to create a batch of forbidden objects. Once the work was completed, those craftsmen mysteriously vanished. However, the whereabouts of those forbidden objects remain unknown to anyone. Not even the secret agents of the Dali Temple could uncover them. If we could find them, it would significantly increase our chances of bringing Hanpa down. After saying this, Shinimo couldn't resist adding, "But you'll have to try this yourselves. I was just speaking offhand. Don't expect me to help you." Gu Xingyuan smiled confidently. "As long as this thing truly exists, I will definitely find it. TCH. Shinimo couldn't be bothered to say more to us and left, carrying his sword. After returning home, Gu Xingyuan and I sorted through the evidence one by one. What had initially been a 5 or 6 out of 10 confidence had now grown to 7 or 8. If everything goes smoothly, we'll find Hanpo's secretly hoarded contraband and then file a complaint to the Emperor. But an unexpected turn of events occurred. On the 5th day of the Lunar New Year, the very day Gu Xingyuan went out to tail Hanpa, Shinimo suddenly came to my door, grabbed my hand, and pulled me away. "Shui Xing, come with me." "What's wrong?" I noticed his unusual expression and had a bad premonition, my heart suddenly tightening. Shinimo took a deep breath to calm himself, then looked at me and spoke each word deliberately, like a sudden clap of thunder on a calm day. "Today, the secret agents of the Dali Temple intercepted a carrier pigeon flying out of Hanpo's residence. Hanpa sent a message to Ninguta, ordering them to immediately execute your uncle and aunt. Hanpa has already traced this back to you, so he intends to silence our entire family." I trembled all over, almost unable to control myself. "No, I can't leave. What about my parents? What about Gu Xingyuan?" "You don't need to worry about Gu Xingyuan. He's highly skilled and has an excellent reputation. Hanpa can't do much to him for now. As for your parents, I've already sent word to have someone look after them. But you, right now, you're the one in the greatest danger. But what good will hiding do? What about the future? With his immense power, he'll always find a way to track me down. And my parents, they won't be able to escape either." My teeth chattered as I focused my thoughts for a moment, then grabbed Shinimo's hand. "Shinimo, I need to see the Emperor." He froze for a moment, then quickly understood what I intended to do. "Are you insane? Do you realize you're gambling with your life? If your so-called husband finds out, won't he have me skinned alive? Do you have any other options in this world? Who else can bypass Hanpa to protect my parents? Can you?" Shinimo fell silent. "Shinimo, this time, I must take the gamble." That very night, with Shinimo's help, I disguised myself as a Taoist nun and infiltrated Dongjue Temple. In the side hall, the emperor was resting with his eyes closed, a stick of incense burning on the small table before him. Having devoted years to Taoist practices and alchemy, he would come to Dongjue Temple for fasting during festivals, and it was this opportunity that allowed me to come before him. I was carrying a basin of water, and before I could get close, I saw his eyes suddenly open. "Your steps are unsteady, you're not a cultivator." The guards nearby, upon hearing this, immediately drew their swords. I immediately knelt down. "Your Majesty is most discerning." He gazed at me with an inscrutable expression, his presence overwhelmingly powerful. Speak, what is your purpose? Clenching my fists until my nails dug into my palms, I forced myself not to tremble. This commoner wishes to present a grievance directly to the throne. His eyebrows twitched as he lounged lazily, gesturing with amused interest for me to continue. Oh, what are you accusing? Let's hear it. The Emperor, this man, who prided himself as the cleverest under heaven, took greatest pride in the fact that he barely attended court sessions a few times a month, yet managed to govern the country in perfect order simply by relaying messages through his trusted ministers, yet his cleverness proved his undoing. The very person he believed to be timid, diligent, and utterly loyal to him had secretly altered his decrees, formed cliques for personal gain behind his back, and persecuted the loyal and virtuous. Now, with corruption rampant and vermin in power, he had become the greatest sinner in the realm. But I couldn't say this outright, arrogant to the extreme. If I told him he was wrong, he'd likely be the first to have me killed. I steadied myself and bowed, saying, since your majesty ascended the throne, the people have lived in peace and prosperity. The nation's strength has flourished, and our might has awed all lands. These achievements, which will be remembered for generations, are the result of your majesty's strategic planning and wise employment of talent. Yet now, there are those who have betrayed your majesty's trust, exploiting their positions to deceive the throne, oppress the people, and tarnish the reputation your majesty has built over the years. This humble woman knows well of your majesty's care for the people and believes you will surely punish these treacherous officials. However,
on their way back to the capital, South Emperor had actually listened that day. He wasn't as fond of Hanpa as people thought. I felt as if a great weight had been lifted, kneeling on the ground as I let out a long sigh of relief. Then, I heard the Emperor say coldly, your courage in risking death to remonstrate is commendable, but disguising yourself to infiltrate the temple, this crime of deceiving the sovereign cannot go unpunished. Your death is necessary to serve as a warning to others. I stared at him blankly for a long time before finally nodding in resignation. From the moment I decided to go see him, I had already prepared myself for death. He took out a vial of poison from his sleeve and threw it into my lap. Considering your filial piety in saving your father, I shall grant you the dignity of an intact corpse. Take your own life. Trembling, I clutched the vial in my hand, suddenly overwhelmed with fear. Do you have any last words? He asked, though resolved to die. I couldn't help but feel profound sorrow. Beg your majesty to treat my parents kindly. The emperor coldly refused. Kindness is impossible. Though your father was falsely accused, he confessed to the crime, which counts as deceiving the sovereign. Allowing him to return to the capital is already an act of mercy. Tears fell from my eyes for a while before I managed a bitter smile. Then I beg your majesty not to let my husband see my corpse. Tell him I committed the crime of deceiving the sovereign and am imprisoned in the dungeon forever. Will that do? I really don't want Gu Xingyuan to see my lifeless body again. How could he bear it? In my previous life, I treated him so poorly, yet after my death, he was so heartbroken it nearly took half his life. In this life, we've been deeply in love, harmonious as zither and harp, and our happy days have only just begun. How could he possibly accept this? The more I thought about it, the sadder I became, crying uncontrollably. The emperor, perhaps annoyed, urged, hurry up. I don't have time to wait for you. I closed my eyes, opened the medicine bottle, and drank it in one gulp. When I woke up, I was in a carriage on my way home, lying in Gu Xingyuan's arms. Opposite me sat Shinimo. He had grown much thinner. Seeing me open my eyes, he couldn't resist sneering. Awake, did you have fun at the palace, Shiningying? I struggled to speak. What Shiningying? I looked up, gazing at Gu Xingyuan. His face was extremely haggard, his eyes bloodshot as he looked at me with both heartache and helplessness. Shui Xiying committed the crime of deceiving the emperor and has been executed. Now, you are the youngest daughter of the Shin family, Shinimo's younger sister, Shiningying. I didn't die, and was given to the Shin family. Gu Xingyuan held me tightly, his chin gently brushing against my forehead. Xiying, from now on, don't do such dangerous things again. Don't make me worry and fear anymore. Okay, these days when I was taken away, he must have been very scared, right? My heart ached unbearably, and I quickly nodded. Okay, from now on we'll never be apart again. At that very moment, Shinimo suddenly said irritably, didn't I say that Shui Xiying is already dead? the one in your arms is called Shiningying. Gu Xingyuan looked up at him and nodded. Understood, elder brother. Shinimo was stunned, his face turning pale with anger. Aren't you disgusted by yourself? By the way, how did you find the forbidden items Hanpa had hidden, far away in the horizon, yet right before your eyes? Let your good husband explain it to you. My brother and I had been hiding in the Han residence for several days without finding anything. Finally, by chance, we knocked over Han Po's court robe and suddenly discovered that while the outer layer was embroidered with crane and cloud patterns, the inner lining actually bore dragon motifs. So Han Pa has been fantasizing about becoming emperor all along. You two are truly remarkable to have uncovered this. Gu Xingyuan's gaze turned distant. I'm not remarkable. If my brother hadn't pushed me, I wouldn't have noticed it either. I glanced sideways at Shinimo's face, which was as dark as charcoal. Gu Xingyuan, are you doing this on purpose? What a magnificent white lotus, rising unsullied from the mud. 7 days after I returned home, my parents were also brought back to the capital. They suffered greatly during their 2 years in Ninguda, their hair and beard turning white, making them look as if they had aged decades. Our family was finally reunited, holding each other and crying for a long time. Gu Xingyuan stood by, watching over us. And when he saw me crying too hard, he handed me a handkerchief. Gu Xingyuan, come here, come, cry with us. I pulled him over, and we embraced my parents in a tight hug. Gu Xingyuan lowered his head but smiled faintly. Half a month later, Gu Xingyuan returned to Yanmen to resume his duties. I saw him off outside the city, watching as he and Ping'an rode away on horseback. Though my heart ached with reluctance, it was also filled with sweetness. Gu Xingyuan, this time there's someone at home thinking of you. To love someone, to care for someone, it truly is the most beautiful thing in the world. A few days after Gu Xingyuan resumed his post, Shinimo also came to my doorstep to bid me farewell. He said he had been in the capital for too long and had forgotten what the outside world was like, so he applied for a transfer to travel for a few years. His departure was sudden, and I hadn't prepared any farewell gifts, leaving me in a bit of a fluster. No need to give me anything, I wouldn't appreciate it anyway. I had no choice but to give up. After watching him for a long time, I smiled and said, Shinimo, thank you for helping me during those days. You, who are so afraid of being implicated, went all out. I really don't know how to thank you enough. I'm not afraid of being implicated. He looked at me, took a deep breath, and said, Shui Xiying, you might not believe it, but back then, I had actually decided to marry you. Even if it meant risking my future, even if it meant being cast out of the Shin family, I was determined to marry you, but I hesitated for too long and was a step too late. By the time I made up my mind to find you, Gu Xingyuan had already come to propose. After saying this, his expression suddenly relaxed, as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted from his heart. I was stunned for a long time before I found my voice again. Really, I always thought you hated me. How could I hate you? I know how kind you were to me before. I'm not truly heartless, after all. He turned his face away and said coldly, Shui Xiying, I've done all I can. Everything you did for me in the past, I've repaid in full. From now on, I owe you nothing. I remained silent for a while, thinking to myself that he's actually quite a decent person, just too stubborn. I understand, and thank you anyway. Don't mention it. No need, I sighed. Then I wish you a smooth journey ahead. May your official career flourish, rising swiftly to great heights, and live up to the high expectations of the entire Shin clan. Naturally, I am destined to become a virtuous minister of this era, leaving my name in history. Of course. The climate in Jiangnan is different from the capital. Take good care of yourself. I've heard there are many beauties there. Perhaps you'll meet the woman destined for you. That's none of your concern. I'm off. He smiled arrogantly, mounted his horse, and galloped away. A cloud of dust rose along the long street. By the time it settled, only scattered hoofprints remained, soon trampled away by passing pedestrians. My life has returned to peace. Every day, I either spend time with my parents or make clothes, shoes, and socks for Gu Xingyuan. Others have garments made by their wives, so he should have them too. Back when I was still in the boudoir, my needlework was renowned for its excellence. Even the embroiderers in the imperial city couldn't match what I made. Gu Xingyuan would write to me every few days, telling me what had happened in Yanmen, and occasionally enclosing a few flowers or plants from there for me to see. Because my replies were few and slow, he complained many times. 2 years later, his term in Yanmen ended, and he was transferred back to the capital. For the first month after his return, I could barely walk steadily every day. Later, even after we had returned to the capital for several years and spent every day together, he would still bring up old grievances from time to time, complaining that I hadn't missed him enough back then and wrote him too few letters, tormenting me all night long. One night, he suddenly woke up. Breathing rapidly, his face streaked with tears, he held me tightly, trembling all over. "Seeing, you're still here, thank goodness. I thought I'd never see you again. What's wrong?" Cupping my face in his hands, his gaze filled with anguish, he said, "I had a dream. In it, you despised me, you wouldn't even look at me. No matter what I did, you refused to let me near you. Later, I went to Yenmen and wrote you letter after letter, hoping you'd care for me just once, but you were so heartless. You never wrote back." I stared at him blankly. "And then what then?" "Without a word, you took poison and ended your life, refusing to even let me see you one last time. Seeing, don't do this to me, don't leave me." He held me tightly, his hands trembling uncontrollably. The dream he spoke of was indeed our past life. By some strange coincidence, these memories had somehow entered his dreams. I raised my hand to cup his face, speaking each word with sincerity. "Husband, see how I'm alive and well, aren't we both doing fine? Don't be afraid, I'll live a long life, never ever leaving you. Even if you try to drive me away, I won't go." He looked at me, gradually calming down, then leaned against my shoulder with a relieved smile. "I would never drive you away. I know, what happened in the past life won't repeat itself." Gushing Yuan served in the capital and rose quickly. After 2 years, the emperor rewarded him with a grand residence. On the day we moved in, he held me and whispered, "Seeing, I promise to give you a good life. I won't break my word. Our days will only get better." I shook my head. Every day spent together as a family is a good day in my heart. The swallows in front of the hall chirp endlessly, as if saying that every day in the future will be a good one. The end.